Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be going over the top biotech website design trends for 2026, probably trends that will work beyond 2026, ideally. And we're going to talk about strategies and insights for biotech sites in general. A lot of these could apply to many different life science kinds of websites, but we are looking at this through the lens of a biotech website design. Now, before we get in, the goals of this presentation will be to go through some of the core principles and concepts of biotech website design, things to know, what's changing, what's staying the same, and really just getting you up to speed on some of those ins and outs. And then I do have a number of websites that we are going to reference that we have found and we were impressed with, and kind of just click through those links and kind of share what I think is cool about them, what I think they're doing that's highlighting some of the current trends. And really, the purpose of this presentation is to get you up to speed on some of the ins and outs of biotech website design and kind of see what is out there through my lens as a website designer, a branding person. And, then you can kind of take what you like, see what you agree with me on, what you don't, and try to come up with some inspiration of your own, whether you're starting a whole new website or whether you have an existing one and you feel like it's really getting to the point where you need a new one. Really, just some inspiration, I guess, is how I should summarize it. So, with that, we'll kind of dive into it. Just a quick intro about who we are at Rain Castle Communications. We're award-winning Boston-based branding and digital marketing communications firm, over 30 years experience, strong focus on healthcare, life sciences, biotech. Our specialty is distilling complex medical information into effective marketing messages. We work with clients all over the world, and yeah, have won some awards as well. Just a little bit of a quick screenshot just to show some people we've actually worked with. I tell you this because I am the president and digital strategist at Rain Castle Communications. And yeah, just want to give you a little bit of background. I have over 15 years of experience, and a lot of our work nowadays is in life sciences with biotech companies. So just wanted to give you a quick background of who we are and why we think you should listen to us. And if you do need help with biotech, any of these kind of website design needs, we're available to meet, discuss how we might be able to help you, whether it's just an outdated site or whether you're a company that's moving and moving through your stages and you're outgrowing your website. Hopefully, that's a great time to engage with a firm like ours. Now, I'd like to start off with just a general introduction to biotech website design. And there are some key points that we can highlight. In effective website design, you really want to establish credibility. And this is the number one thing that is kind of regardless of the stage of the company you are. The credibility is always like the one of the biggest, most important things. And when you do it well and the site is designed well, that really helps to just get that immediate in under a second, somebody lands on your site and they feel like there was somebody that's was serious. I was talking to another founder recently where partly why they needed an upgraded website was they didn't want to feel like people would look at them and see them as just the startup that just walked off the steps of the university. They need to look more professional and polished. So that's a much smaller one, but just a quick example. Next, there's clarifying complex science. So this is always can be hard to do, but that's why you work with specialty providers typically in this space. How can you kind of really clarify your message and make it simple? For a couple reasons, even it almost turns out where even if your audience is technical and they would understand the science, they don't really want to land on a front page or a home page of a website and have to immediately start understanding it. They want to understand why should I get excited about your company and what you're doing, and then eventually let me get into the science and hopefully it's going to be presented in a digestible way. Another big point is it really should support fundraising and partnerships. It should really clearly communicate the company's mission and achievements, and really invite people to hopefully engage and want to join in and on the investments and things. And then as your company continues, hiring will become more of a priority. The website should attract talent and really kind of communicate the right culture and values because your website will help. You'll probably get lots of applicants, but if you have a website that will attract the best ones. And if it's somebody that's going to choose between your company and a couple of others, if it's a very good candidate, your website can play a role in that process. And then how can you build the website to really assist with that? The website is also important for improving search engine optimization or AI optimization. That's that AIO. And it's becoming more and more important because, people are really using AI every day in addition to search engines. And when you are starting early and at least optimizing at some level, even as an early on startup, as you progress, you will have already built that strong foundation where Google and AI understands what your company is, what you specialize in, and who needs to be brought to that website that is a good fit for you. And these websites also do need to adapt to multiple audiences. This is where it becomes more complicated later on as you progress. Eventually, your site needs to talk to investors, and then eventually it needs, up front it needs to talk to that. Then it needs to talk to, maybe some patient friendly type of content, as long as healthcare providers and investors, and then eventually so on until it finally becomes hopefully a website that's evolved to the point where you have products or medicines or therapies, and now it's doing a whole lot of other things, and eventually you'll have probably a few different websites for your needs. But all along the way, the adapting to the audience and the stage you're in, and really communicating clearly to that, and doing some of these other key points is a big part of what's important about this whole process and everything that we're doing. So that's just a little bit about the basics. But if you do the basics right and you think about these six things all throughout the process, you're kind of like, that's kind of your North Star. Like, okay, we can do all these other fancy, fun things, but let's come back and make sure we're doing these six things effectively where appropriate. Um, Now, some of the evolving expectations, it's very interesting where I feel like there was a stretch of time where people were just blown away by, I want to land on a website and have something fly in from this way, and then as I scroll, I want all these things moving around. And I feel like there is a little bit of comeback in terms of simplicity, and people just want to get onto your website and get the information they need as fast as possible and be off the site also as fast as possible. So that's also become a little bit of an interesting thing where sometimes you redesign websites and the time on site goes down, and actually sometimes that's a good thing. Maybe not for biotech sites, especially if you want to drive people to want to read a lot of detail, then it would be a different metric you're measuring. But yeah, it is all about the simplicity and an immediate clarity, so that if they do come to the website and they just want to, find your progress and what makes you different, make it very clear and get those visual cues to get them there. And then once they are into the sections that are really made for them, have that structured depth. Let them get at the top with more of a high level summary, and then scroll down and get into more detail as needed. Or if you have a bigger site, click through to more detailed pages as needed. That structure is really falling in line with some of the best practices of AI optimization also, which is just a good consideration, where it's interesting how the AI optimization can line up better with real people who want to start at one level, get an overview summary, and then scan and get the other details. And you want people to be able to interpret the information. So that's that third point. Is it organized in a way that can be easily understood, not just by the users, but by AI? So that's really just really going off of that. But luckily, the way that AI likes to read a page is also the way that a lot of people like to read the pages. Now, this next point is about data first communication, designing for evaluation. So this is one of the biggest trends where we're going towards more structured data, forward narrative content. And then you've seen in the past, like key information or data can get buried in paragraphs, and that is not scannable for real people, and it's not very friendly for AI bots when they're trying to search that and consider if your company is legitimate and one that should be brought to people's attention. So you really want to have a clear presentation of those data and results. You want to reference publications or grants or partnerships, so that that also gets that borrowed, or not even borrowed, earned credibility on the page. Evidence of any other validation or partners, and visible expertise within the leadership team. So when you have your leadership bios, if you have a section about where they've been, what they've done, and why they're credible, or where they graduated from, or past experiences or publications, basically a lot of this, and it's important for people too, they want to see that proof. And so do the AI bots and things like that. They want to have that clear proof of, okay, I see who you are, I see what you're doing, and now how do I know for sure you're credible and you can do this or you've done it before? And what are the proof points? And that's becoming more and more prominent, important to make prominent right from the start. Now, we're going to talk a little bit what is in and out for biotech website design. These are some of the emerging trends that we wanted to highlight. I tried to highlight four that seem to be popping up more often instead of trying to fill six. But this one is here is the high performance, the answer engine driven storytelling. So kind of building off what we said in the previous slide, oversized metrics, interactive charts, scannable structured content, get that immediate clarity for the user and the AI, and how can we get that attention fast and really get them into the story and interested and engaging. The next one is this kind of like immersive tactile experiences, so 3D animations. Really, it's interesting. There's a lot of these creative elements that you can use within websites, and that's one of our favorite things to do is take that, look at the content, look at what we're trying to say, and how do we create something that is user friendly, creative, engaging, and but still easy to use, like we said, to explain the science. And because sometimes you'll see it and there's a lot of information you need to deliver, but how do you make it so that it's delivered in a way that is organized and the right kind of feel? So that's really, and this is going to become more apparent as I show the example sites we found, and I'll point those out so you get some inspiration, so you can see something another person did. Say, hey, that's not exactly what we do, but it's I could see us doing something like that. That's usually the best source to get that feedback. So next is the enhanced accessibility for and AI search optimization. So I've been seeing this a lot on even on RFPs where we didn't see it for a long time, but it was always something people knew was important was ADA compliance for people who come to a website, and if they can't see it, they need the screen reader to say what's on the page, or they need to be able to navigate the site without using a mouse. All these things are really important for accessibility. And it's also important for, just site these bots to be able to read and understand your page and then report back to it and give you recommendations. And then the last thing we want to highlight was this, investor focused, fundable, scannable, science forward kind of strategy on a website. So having scannable layouts, highlighting big breakthroughs, metrics, credentials right away, and really making the site into a digital pitch. That really helps reduce that there's risk and drive, basically helping them engage. So kind of still building off that theme of the credibility baked in as many places as you can on a website, and partly why it is so repetitive, even as I'm talking through this presentation, is you really never know for sure how many pages somebody's going to visit on the website. You might have a 6-page website, but people visit two. So you really need to make the pages, building off of each other, interlinked, really making sure that, hey, on every page, if we can, let's try to build in some of these elements because we know that we might not get the people for more than one or two clicks. So that's something to consider as well. Some of the design elements to avoid are just these excessive generic stock images. So kind of overusing these types of images can be an immediate turnoff for a lot of visitors, especially as you progress and you have certain types of people or patients or healthcare provider professionals or providers coming to your website. One thing I didn't actually put on here, but kind of building on that generic stock image is we have been getting away from it for a while now. Is when you have a stock image and it's over edited, either taking out the background and putting the scientist or somebody against a white background, just overly edited images are you see those kind of fading away because people when they see that it's just over doctored, and it takes a stock image and makes it look somehow even stockier when you start doing that. The next thing to avoid is these overly complex layouts. So if you have a website where there's just big text blocks and they have different amounts of content in each of them, it can really be just overwhelming for people visiting the site. And you really want to try to space it out and wherever you can hide additional text, you can. So if you have accordions or tabs or these elements where it will show a headline and a little bit of text and then a link to expand and show the full, that's a great strategy. But getting away from just these overwhelming pages of text is another thing. I would even kind of throw in there kind of like getting a little somewhat away from this super long scrolling pages. A lot of people don't have patience for that. Try to think of your page as how can we organize this page of with the most important information, make it scannable and clear, and then have them click through to another page. So I think that's also kind of fits in with the overly complex and cluttered layouts. Next is the static, non-personalized experience. So if you have these pages and they don't adapt, whether it's the right audience, whether it's an investor, a scientist, or a patient, or it really does feel outdated in 2026, and you're missing opportunities to engage visitors meaningfully. So really, just when you are working on the website and you do have the need for more, it is better to have these sections of the websites that have more personalized messaging towards whoever's most likely to be engaging with that page so that it comes across as a lot more inviting, engaging, getting them to really want to take the next step with you. And yeah, I think really avoiding ignoring AI search structuring, if it failing to use clear headings, concise content, question-based headings when you can, it really does limit your visibility in this discovery landscape. And I think a lot of places that even didn't value search engine optimization before because there was so few people Googling specific things. Now with AI, it's just become so important to really get this brand perception of your company built up in AI so that hey, if an investor or if a potential employee, asks AI about your company and who you are, what you do, is it a legitimate place to consider? You really want to have everything that you can out there, your website, your social media, your maybe your publications, anything, fueling those answers to answer favorably about your company. All right, so next, given a few predictions of where we think things are going, I think websites will continue being more personalized. It's really you're seeing so many sites now with audience specific landing pages, and I think that's only going to really continue. I think we'll get to a point someday where these websites detect who you might be or who you are, or even just prompt you to say who you are, and then the whole website will regenerate for you. I definitely could see that happening someday. Chatbots, the integration of AI tools are becoming more and more common. I haven't really heard about many that are successfully using them yet, but they're only going to get better, and we'll all be using them probably soon. And then, I think websites are just going to become more and more sophisticated. And with AI and development, I think it'll be more manageable and less costly to do super complex things in the near future, which I'm excited about too, because I don't think you need to. Anyway, right now, I think the cost to do a lot of the things that are on some of these sites, I'm even going to share with you today, is probably, I think it's debatable of whether it was worth that cost. Maybe it is because I'm sharing them. But aside from that, like, is it really producing a lot of business value for them? That could be, but I think in the future, they will get more simple to do. So now we'll talk a little bit about trust building elements to start incorporating into your websites. And I think with these, as sites are getting more sophisticated, as they're getting bigger, these are a lot of things that smaller companies in the past said, oh, we don't need to do that. That's not really important. But now with everything that's coming out, you really should as soon as possible, and as you move along, start doing some of these things. So some of those common, or at least one of these. So there's the case studies and white papers. What can you add to your website in terms of content that's interesting to people that also shows your knowledge and overall authority over the topic? Testimonials or any other third-party validations. Those are great to get on the website when you can to just get that credibility, like we talked about earlier. The investor and partner logos wherever you can, just show that other people have invested in you and believe in you, and that kind of can go a long way for credibility if you're able to do that. And of course, the team bios, making sure that they have the right elements and they're consistent and you have professional photos goes a long way. And also kind of building up case studies and white papers, just this overall topic authority over what you do or what you focus on, having a library, whether it's webinars, news, events, or all. That's also very good. I know a lot of our clients that go to events, even that's builds up a lot of credibility and trust, just showing that you're out there and you're participating, you're learning, and then even doing little event recaps if you can go a long way. And it's easy. It's just a matter of getting into the habit of it. So we're going to go through some websites that we found that we were impressed with and point out many different trends along the way. And sometimes it'll be around this optimized design, the 3D things and the interactivity, or just concise, the metrics we'll point out. We're still seeing a lot of sites in dark mode. It's interesting. It seems like dark mode is starting to shift more towards the early startups where they're very sciencey looking websites, and then as they advance, sometimes they're getting a little bit away from the dark mode. So it is interesting over the last year, a trend I'm starting to notice, and then some of the scrolly telling with narrative breakthroughs. So this was the first one on the list that we reviewed. And reload that and get down to the link so I can click on it. All right, so here's the first one. This Envita website. So this was a beautiful site. It has such nice colors in the background, and you can even see these little subtle things loading. So I think one thing I liked about this website is that it comes across as interactive, but it does have this just straightforward static message. Life is smart. Let's learn from it. Um, and Veda is learning from life to discover medicines 4 times faster than industry average. So the industry average. So that's pretty cool. They're really highlighting a key stat. And they're even linking that. That's cool. They're linking 4 times faster to their platform page. So that's very clever. And then they have a nice clear link, see our pipeline. It's not learn more. It's not something like that. Like, okay, I know that's going to bring me to the pipeline and I can decide if that's where I want to go next. I think that's also a little bit of the sign of the trends is more descriptive buttons. You see they see our pipeline. They have careers. So I thought that was nicely done. And then you can see it starts off not dark, but very colorful, and then gets into that clean kind of design where they get in a little bit more about the platform because they have the platform linked here, but very subtly. And then here they really expand into it, which is great. Look at that, see how. So that's a clever button. This is a little large for my liking here. But yeah, I think that was the main thing. Here's the as seen in, as we talked about, getting that borrowed credibility and so on. So that's a bit about that website. I think that was really the main thing we're going to highlight. If we click through, check out the pipeline. Nicely done with the colors, pretty clear overall. And one more design trend that maybe I'll highlight before I click out of this site is this kind of glowing gradient, radial gradient. I think it's called background, where it starts off super blue and fades into this pink and into white. Very trendy, very beautiful design if you want to do that. Next one we will evaluate is this bright biotech. This is a really nice looking design. They have this kind of green background, growing a better future. And you can see how it started off kind of static. And then, but actually, as I'm doing my mouse cursor ball, you can kind of see how it's has this interesting video, like storytelling going on in the background and how things kind of play out. So that's actually pretty cool. I think they might have overdone it a little bit. I feel like I don't know when this is going to end. I'm just kind of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and the whole homepage essentially is a scrolling thing. So I don't love that, but it is a great way to show that they're doing this kind of like scroll and tell story feature on the website. So that could be something that could be useful on one of your sites potentially. So that's really what we wanted to highlight on there. And this is kind of a cool menu, technology. And they continue that kind of scroll feel even as I'm in the technology page. But it is frustrating. I don't know how many times I need to scroll to really get into it. But it's a great example of this strategy. Maybe the strategy done to the extreme, but a great strategy to see and imagine how could we do something like this on our own website, if not in a, if not in a overly done like this, maybe in a more subtle way that's still very helpful for people to use. All right, so next site we'll look at is Vibrant Wellness. This was a really cool site. You can kind of see it has, when I scroll on it, the person is moving around, and then it has a start experience button, which is nice. So if I click on start experience, you can kind of see it zooms out, and then I can explore the different categories. There's even some music going on, actually. I don't think I've ever noticed that before. I can turn it off by clicking there. If I click neurology, you can see it zooms in. So very interactive. This is one of those examples of one where I said, yeah, I wonder how much business value this is bringing. It's definitely, I'm sure the service was very expensive to develop, but it is very kind of cool to see. And there are ways to do stuff like this, things like this, that aren't overly expensive to develop, even if it was just kind of more so going backwards, if I can. Even if it was more so the silhouette and you're kind of clicking on the different categories and having a pop-up and explaining what you do to help with those areas. That wouldn't be overly as complicated as what this is functioning, but it's a great example to kind of have some inspiration and imagine, okay, if we wanted to do something like this, what are the creative solutions to do that? Or can we do this and then find out how you do that? All right, so that was that example. Now we'll get into here. This was kind of an interesting site that kind of, when you first load it up, has the background playing so that people really like these kind of, decorative backgrounds. And then as you scroll down, it has that kind of interesting floating here of like where everything is going. And then as you scroll down here, this is really cool. This is like the trending element we'd like to highlight where it kind of, this screen locks you here. So I'm not scrolling right now, but as I scroll, if you see this progress bar going, it's going to start highlighting each of the tabs and switch the little bit of excerpt information on the right and then switch the graphic on the left. So that's a really cool strategy that is so easy to implement on websites relative to the last example I guess I was just sharing. And basically once you get through all three of those, then it allows you to continue scrolling down the page. And now here's another element that's kind of changing as I'm scrolling. Just a little bit of word to, in my opinion, maybe they're overdoing some of this. So just a note, but no shortage of inspiration on this page for ideas that you could potentially incorporate on your site. Next is 1910. Now, if I come down here, has this kind of interesting background. I thought it was kind of cool how they had this preview for the platform on the right next to a very large headline, really making it clear what they do. And as I scroll, they really want you to watch that. So I thought that was clever how they then make the video a lot bigger right in here. And I like and how they're showing that it's just a minute 32 seconds. So maybe you should actually watch that video. It's only going to take so much time. So this was a kind of a nicely done scrolly telling strategy, and you can see that kind of light, very light but warming gradient going on in the background, where it kind of has the darker pink here and it fades into the white, but no hard edge, but still creates that separation. Very nice modern design. Plus they have their news highlights and so on. So that's what we really liked about that site. All right. Next we have Biotech is the name of it. So kind of a cool landing page. And you can kind of see this has this really interesting element where you can scroll and hover over the headlines. So otherwise, without it, pretty basic page, right? But then when I hover on here, it just adds a little bit of visual interest while still having a nice, very clear, easy website. And then I see this button here for about production, and it's 5 minutes and 21 seconds. In my opinion, would never watch that. That's already almost 3 times longer than most website visits are. So anyway, just to highlight and a little bit of highlighting the difference between how that's a lot less inviting to click than the previous example where they were showing, oh, this is only a bit of a minute and a half. Um, So then we scroll down here, you can kind of see this is another trend that we're seeing in sites, which is pretty cool, where you have the next element kind of overlap as you scroll. So then you kind of see it's almost like stacking elements going down the page. Another example of, hey, maybe we overdid it a little bit here, maybe they overdid it a little bit, but still nonetheless kind of a really cool inspirational element to consider for your own use. Coming down further, we have the Highlight Therapeutics. Take a look at that site. So that has this kind of different highlights about us, has this cool background going on in the back. And then as you go down, it has very simple, and you can see this nice call out of the number of people affected by this disease. Has a very nice, it's such a, I really like this one. It's such a simple look overall to it, but really works well. I love that pipeline. I thought that it looks good where you kind of click and get the additional column details. Very nicely done website. More so from the standpoint of big headline, a little bit more about our innovation and science, and probably information into the science, a little bit of an impact number, and visual interest, and so on, and then a little bit more about their candidates. So that was a really nice, nicely done site. And you can see, like, definitely, I think much simpler from a functionality standpoint than some others, but I feel like more effective in other ways. Now we have this one. Uh-oh. Looks like their site went down since the last time we went on it. So we'll skip that one. But it was a really cool design. I like that kind of pillbox kind of encasing the navigation menu, so it still stands out nicely while still having that dark background with the bright pink over it. This one was a really neat site. It has this kind of like this background fading in and out effect to it. That's cool, and has a very quick headline. And then as you roll down, it has this very simple storytelling feature where it has a headline, short text, and a graphic on the right, and it kind of just alternates. So kind of an older strategy, but still tried and true. It really does tell the story in an effective way, which I appreciate. Then next is the Institute for Health. I just loved on this one how they highlighted the numbers in the top right. Thought that was very effective, and oh, usually the numbers are kind of like almost like supposed to be complementary, where you see them usually below something, but they really had it prominent over this video, and I thought that was kind of an interesting, bold approach that they took. Plus, they have the easy menu going across up here, which is nice. And if I scroll down, you kind of see some of the other interesting things that they've done with the cards and making it so you only see one description at a time. Not my favorite, to be honest, but still a very unique, interesting element nonetheless. And then here, this kind of scrolls through the different tabs, which is kind of cool. I don't see that as very user friendly. You don't really typically see that here. Usually it'd be a better queue for like next here, but it's on auto rotate too. This was a cool element. You can see once I get to this point of the page, it kind of locks and it's going to show me a different message as I scroll, and it's counting them too. And I thought that was really cool and changes there. And I thought that's such an interesting way to kind of explain something in a scrollable view. You know what? I'm actually gonna keep that on my bookmarks. And you can see that they're definitely trying to work the AI optimization. I'm starting to notice more and more of these AI FAQs, not as relevant for many biotech sites that we work on, but just if you are focusing on SEO and AI search, a lot of people are starting to sneak these frequently asked questions onto home pages. Continuing, and we'll be wrapping up shortly. Oh, this was a very interesting one where you kind of scroll and you see the bug expand and it has little hashtags of relevant words to them. So this was an interesting one because it's kind of scrolling and telling the story, and it makes you want to keep scrolling. So I thought this was very nicely done with simple scrollable elements as you go down the page. Thought that was kind of a cool site. You can even see this kind of simple timeline. And this is a one-page site, so this one's probably would be way too long if it was a traditional homepage, but it is just a single page. So if you are a biotech and you're going to start, maybe you're coming out of stealth mode and you just want a one-page website, this one's an awesome example of just kind of like guiding people through it while also letting them kind of click on the different items in the top menu. All right, here's Singular Genomics, another one. Well, in this one, they had this interesting slash kind of graphic, but still just telling the simple story as you kind of scroll down, shows the product image um, as well. But you can tell it's definitely a more simple kind of design compared to the others. All right, I do want to get through. So we'll have a few more samples in here that you can look at that we found. But as we're running out of time, I'd like to share some of the things to consider before applying these trends. And I do this because there's so many fun things to do with design and otherwise, but there are some things you can do before. So one thing that is always the most important, and then that I feel like doesn't really shouldn't have to wait is your content up to date? Is it up to date factually? Or from a messaging standpoint, because if it's not, that's something that can be done in the short term. Give yourself a bit of a score, an audit of your self site. Is the information on the site, is there a clear hierarchy? Is it simplified at the top and then gets more detailed as you go? That's an easy content audit you can do on the site as well, in addition to just scanning it for accuracy. Is the navigation clear and intuitive? Like, what pages do you have? After visiting all those sites that we shared today, or even all your competitors' sites that you like, you usually can pretty much see it. What are you missing that's major? That's because if you do have a clear and intuitive menu that's consistent with other similar types of sites, it does go a long way to get people to find what they are looking for easily if they're typically visiting those kinds of sites. When you do look at your competitor sites, how do you compare to your competitors? Do you look like you're old and outdated? If so, then it would become more of a priority to get that corrected sooner than later. And are you missing anything after you review your own website, your competitors, websites you like, you look at the content navigation, what's missing that needs to at least be added to the website, even if it's in a simplistic way? And are there multiple ways for users to engage with your company? If there's contact, but if you also have an email updates feature with your that you send out, how can we get that more visible and get people onto that? Check it out on the phone. You'd be surprised. A lot of people don't look at their own sites on their phone, even though they use their phone all the time. They go on websites. Check it out and just make sure that there aren't any issues happening on the mobile version of your site. Um, and if it's important to you to be found for some of your key terms, just start Googling or asking AI things that you wished you would come up for and see if you're there. And if you're not, that can become a little bit of a potential priority in the future. I'll add one more onto that. Go and ask AI about your company. Like, tell me about, and then your company name, and then ask questions about it and see what AI is saying and see if it's matching with what you're actually doing, what you would hope it would answer. Because that would also become a content priority if there are some mismatches. And if you have Google Analytics on your website or any other kind of data, just take a look at it. See how many people are visiting your website. If you're at a company and you're trying to make a case why the website needs to be updated, you'd be surprised. Some people will say like, "Oh, nobody visits their website," and then you look at the analytics and it's like, yes, in fact, a lot of people visit the website, so it can help internally. Now, after you do all that scoring and review, meet with your own team and ask them the same questions. What do they think about the website, the content, what's missing, what sites do they like? Um, Most importantly, ask them, what does the site need to do for us, and what does success look like? Um, and also, if you can get websites that they like, that's helpful to get an idea of what their tastes are. After meeting with doing your own self audit and meeting with the internal team, you can really start putting together the success factors for the website, the references, additional feedback, look at your own scores, update them. And then once you have that list of improvements, you can either focus on long term, the things that you might be able to do yourself or do yourself and then get some help, or you can look long term. But either way, you'll have a great plan for what to do immediately next. And if you do think to engage with an agency, hopefully ours, Raincastle, we'll have a much better idea immediately of kind of what you're looking for, what you need the site to do, and where your kind of head is at. And then we can quickly get up to speed and figure out what it's going to take if we're the right fit to do that. Now, I just wanted to group some of the things in the short term, long term recommended. I think in the short term, it never makes sense to leave old, outdated content on a website, even if you commit to doing a new website and it could take 3 to 6 months. You don't need to wait that long with and live on with a website that's completely inaccurate. It's so easy typically to update images or visuals on a website just to get it somewhat up to speed. There's smaller tasks you can do for usability. You can read if you're really in a crunch and you're already spending money on digital marketing or Google Ads or things like that, maybe one of the main priorities is just to improve or redesign some of those existing landing pages for lead generation. And if you don't already have Google Analytics and Google Search Console installed, just get those on as soon as possible because it'll be helpful in the future to measure your engagement on the website and overall results. And why not go and update the website for SEO? That could be done on any kind of outdated website as long as you have the right pages and you want to just make it a little more clear and accurate for everyone. The longer terms are the full website redesigns or overhauls, video production, missing animations, brand messaging workshops, you're really getting your positioning down, rebranding, custom programming, or a full website rewrite. Those are more so things where, that's a bigger project, but don't I think the short term, if you were just doing something, get all the short term urgent priorities done, and then you can also focus on the longer term, bigger project. All right. So really just important to consider all those. So thank you. That's our presentation today. I hope this was helpful to you and your inspiration. Again, my name is Donato D'Andrea. I'm the president at Rain Castle Communications. And if we could help you with your website, we'd be honored to be considered and can set up a meeting. Thanks.